A 10-year-old Siberian Husky can bolt out your front door with like the exact same explosive energy they had as a puppy.
Oh, absolutely. They really can.
But beneath that athletic, endurance-bred exterior, there's this invisible biological timer ticking. And if you wait for them to actually look old, well, you've already waited way too long.
It is the ultimate paradox of the working breed, right? I mean, you're looking at a dog whose entire physical architecture was engineered to sustain forward momentum in incredibly harsh conditions.
Yeah, that drive just doesn't fade away because the calendar turned a page.
Exactly. But the biological infrastructure supporting that drive, that absolutely does fade, and it happens almost entirely out of sight.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today we are taking you on a highly specialized journey into canine biology.
Yes, specifically tailored for those of you who want to understand the actual mechanics beneath the surface.
Right. Our source material today is a really fascinating transcript from the VitalPet Podcast, specifically their Dog Health Academy series. And this one focuses entirely on Siberian Husky senior care.
And our mission here is to decode what aging genuinely looks like in a high-performance breed. We're going to translate those subtle physiological, cognitive, and sensory changes into actionable care strategies.
Because the goal is to ensure their senior years remain active, engaged, and, structurally sound.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the whole concept of when a husky actually becomes a senior, that is where a lot of us get completely tripped up.
Oh, 100%.
Right. According to our source material, veterinarians generally classify medium to large breeds, like Huskies, as entering their senior years around 7 to 8 years old.
Which always sounds so early to owners.
It does. Because when you look at a healthy 7-year-old Husky, I mean, they don't look old at all.
No, they don't. But that 7 to 8 year mark, that is when the internal biology starts shifting at a cellular level, completely regardless of how they're behaving in the backyard.
Wow. Okay.
And to understand why this is so hidden, you really have to look at what they were bred to do. A Siberian Husky is essentially a biological endurance engine.
Right, they have this massive cardiovascular reserve.
Exactly. And an incredibly high concentration of type I slow-twitch muscle fibers. These are the fibers built specifically for sustained, oxygen-efficient movement.
So they basically have this massive physical buffer.
Yeah.
Like if a typical sedentary dog loses 20% of its cardiovascular efficiency, you see it immediately.
Oh, yeah, they get winded just going up the stairs.
Right. But if a Husky loses 20% of its efficiency, they still have more stamina than most other dogs on the block.
That is the core of the issue. A sports car losing 20 miles per hour off its top speed is still going to blow past a minivan on the highway.
That's a great way to put it.
You just aren't going to notice the loss of top-end performance unless you are specifically looking for it. The decline begins down at the cellular level.
Like with the mitochondria.
Right. Yes, the mitochondria in their muscle cells become just slightly less efficient at processing oxygen, and the motor units connecting nerves to those muscle fibers begin to slowly degrade.
Which means the very first signs of aging in a dog whose entire identity is built around movement is going to be a super subtle shift in their biomechanics.
Very subtle.
The source material notes things like a slight hesitation before jumping into the back of a car, or taking just a few seconds longer to get their legs underneath them after a long nap on a hard floor.
And those moments of hesitation are crucial biofeedback. They're telling you that the dog's physical recovery threshold has actually shifted.
So what does this all mean? If I have a Husky who is clearly hesitating to get up or maybe limping slightly after a long run, my immediate instinct is that I need to protect them.
Which is a very natural instinct.
Honestly, if I keep walking a dog that is hesitating, I feel like I'm committing animal abuse. How do we balance preserving their quality of life with not torturing them? Because forcing a limping dog to hike seems entirely counterintuitive.
It feels counterintuitive until you look at the actual biomechanics of a canine joint. This brings us to what we call the motion paradox.
Okay, the motion paradox.
Yeah. You have to picture the Husky's musculoskeletal system like a suspension bridge. The bones and joints are the stone pillars, and the surrounding muscles are the high-tension cables holding the entire structure up.
Okay, I can visualize that. The muscles are the cables, absorbing the shock of the traffic above.
Exactly. Now, as any mammal ages, they experience sarcopenia, which is just the natural loss of muscle mass over time.
Right.
If you assume rest is the safest choice for an aging husky and you drastically cut back on their walks, you are essentially letting those tension cables slacken and waste away.
Oh, I see where this is going.
When the muscle mass disappears, it no longer absorbs the shock of their movement. Suddenly, the cartilage and the bone in their joints are taking the full, violent brunt of every single step.
Wow. So by bubble wrapping them and just letting them rest on the couch, I am systematically removing the biological shock absorbers that keep them pain-free.
You are actively accelerating the deterioration of the joint. And furthermore, cartilage does not have a direct blood supply.
Wait, really? It doesn't?
No, it doesn't. It relies entirely on the circulation of synovial fluid inside the joint to deliver nutrients and clear out waste. That fluid is only pumped around when the joint is actually in motion.
So if you stop the movement, you literally starve the cartilage.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I still can't take an 8-year-old husky on a 10-mile run on asphalt if their biological timer is ticking. We have to keep the suspension bridge strong, but we obviously can't overload it.
Right. The transition relies on adjusting the parameters of the load. The source material strongly advocates for shifting towards shorter, more frequent exercise sessions with a focus on lower impact movement.
Okay, so a senior husky can absolutely still go hiking.
Oh, absolutely. But instead of one massive, exhausting trek on a weekend, you break it up into several shorter, consistent walks throughout the week, and ideally on softer terrain like dirt or grass.
And you're monitoring their recovery time. Like if it takes them 2 days to stop walking stiffly after a hike, you push the engine too hard and you need to scale back the distance.
Yes, but you scale back the distance. You do not stop the walking entirely. You keep the RPMs lower, but you absolutely have to keep the engine running.
Right.
And because we are forcing their bodies to slow down to protect their joints, we inadvertently create an entirely new problem.
Because you're dealing with a working breed.
Exactly. They still have immense mental energy, even if their joints can't support a 10-mile run anymore. If you don't redirect that energy, it inevitably manifests as anxiety or destructive behavior.
So because we are lowering physical exertion, we have to aggressively increase cognitive exertion.
That's the trade-off.
I like to think of this as Sudoku for dogs.
Yeah.
We're talking about scent games, hiding their meals in puzzle toys, teaching them new low-impact tricks. You have to give them a job that keeps those neurological pathways firing even when their body is resting.
Which raises a really important question about how canine cognition actually ages.
Right, because it's not just physical.
No, it's not. Cognitive decline in a working breed isn't just about memory. It's about a highly active neurological system losing its processing efficiency.
Okay, how so?
Well, the myelin sheaths that insulate the nerves in their brain slowly degrade over time, which means electrical impulses travel just a fraction of a second slower.
Which explains why an older dog might know exactly what the command sit means, but it takes an extra beat for the file to load in their brain before their body actually responds.
Exactly. It is a processing delay, not stubbornness.
Right.
What's fascinating here is how these cognitive delays overlap with physical sensory decline, and how frequently owners completely misdiagnose what they are seeing in their own living rooms.
The source material dives deep into this, specifically regarding their eyes and ears.
Yeah, let's look at the eyes first. As huskies age, they frequently develop a condition called nuclear sclerosis.
Okay, what is that exactly?
Well, the lens of a dog's eye continuously produces new fibers throughout their entire life. But because the outer capsule of the lens cannot expand, those new fibers push the older ones toward the center, compressing them tightly together.
So the center of the eye just gets denser and denser over the years.
Yes. And as it becomes denser, it starts to scatter incoming light rather than focusing it cleanly on the retina. It often looks like a cloudy, sort of bluish haze in the pupil.
But it's not a cataract, right?
No, it is not a cataract, which is an actual opacity, but it severely impacts their depth perception and how well they see in low light.
Oh, wow. So if the light is scattering, then a dimly lit hallway at night doesn't just look dark to them. It probably looks like a chaotic, confusing web of shadows.
Which fundamentally alters their behavior. The source points out that an owner might see their huskies hesitate at the top of the stairs in the evening, or maybe startle violently when someone walks into the room.
And the owner just assumes the dog is becoming skittish or antisocial or disobedient.
When in reality, the dog literally cannot resolve the shadows on the floor. And they didn't hear you approach because their high-frequency hearing is degrading at the exact same time.
Man, that's rough. It's a sensory shift, heavily disguised as a behavioral flaw.
It really is. And if you don't understand the underlying biology of nuclear sclerosis or age-related hearing loss, you run the very real risk of punishing a dog who is simply trying to navigate a world that is becoming progressively blurrier and quieter.
That brings up a massive challenge for you, the listener, trying to manage this at home. We know the physical joint changes are gradual, The cognitive processing delays are subtle. The sensory changes are almost invisible. And layered on top of all of this, Huskies are notoriously stoic dogs. How are you supposed to know when they're genuinely hurting?
It's difficult because Huskies are exceptionally skilled at masking discomfort. You cannot wait for a Husky to cry out or whimper because they rarely ever will. You have to look for secondary behavioral indicators of physical pain.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source material outlines some of these subtle clues, like a dog that suddenly starts pacing the house at night when everyone else is asleep.
Yes, sleep disruption is a huge indicator.
Or a subtle shift in how they distribute their weight when they stand still. Or maybe a sudden lack of interest in a toy they use to destroy in minutes. But because these clues are so subtle, owners fall into these massive psychological traps.
The source identifies two incredibly dangerous extremes that humans fall into when managing an aging, stoic breed. The first extreme is the dismissal.
Right. The trap of just writing everything off. Like, oh, he's hesitating on the stairs. Well, it's just old age. He's pacing at night. Just old age.
Exactly. And the danger of the dismissal is that while aging itself is a natural biological process, it makes the canine body highly susceptible to specific underlying conditions that a veterinarian can actively treat.
Like what?
Well, osteoarthritis is manageable. Certain metabolic issues are highly treatable. If you mentally categorize every symptom as the inevitable decline of old age, you are going to leave a stoic dog sitting in chronic, untreated pain.
Okay, so if the dismissal is ignoring the problem, the second trap has to be the overreaction.
It is. The second extreme is the panic. This occurs because the Husky used to be this invincible force of nature, so the moment they show a genuine sign of weakness or pain, the owner panics, assumes a catastrophic failure of the body, and immediately bubble wraps the dog.
Which brings us right back to the motion paradox and the suspension bridge analogy. By panicking and stopping all activity out of fear, you destroy the tension cables protecting the joints.
You cause the exact catastrophic physical decline you were so terrified of.
Wow. So successfully managing a senior Husky really requires walking this razor-thin middle ground between those two psychological extremes. You cannot dismiss their pain, but you absolutely cannot let fear paralyze your management of it either.
Which means we need a concrete, actionable toolkit for daily life. Let's look at how the relationship with veterinary care has to fundamentally shift.
Right. It must shift from reactive care, waiting for a visible problem to emerge, to aggressive, proactive screening. The source really stresses the necessity of semi-annual wellness exams and routine blood work.
And the logic there ties directly back to their biological stoicism.
Right.
If a Husky is evolutionarily hardwired to hide their physical pain from you, routine blood paneling is literally the only way to peek behind the curtain.
It detects those subtle elevations in liver enzymes or kidney values months or even years before the dog physically shows you they are sick in the living room.
Exactly. And alongside internal organ function, you have to monitor their intake closely. A senior dog's metabolism naturally slows down, and because we are adjusting their physical output, their overall caloric requirement is going to drop.
So a modest decrease in appetite is normal.
It is. But a sudden, sharp refusal to eat is an immediate red flag. And our source material draws a fascinating connection here to canine dental health, which is arguably the most overlooked aspect of senior care.
Oh, for sure. Because dental disease is just compounding and insidious.
It really is. A Husky has a very high drive to eat. They will often power through incredible dental pain, literally swallowing dry kibble whole without even chewing it, just to satisfy that drive.
That's crazy.
But eventually, a fractured tooth or severe periodontal disease becomes so agonizing that they just stop eating entirely.
So the owner naturally assumes the dog's internal organs are failing or they're nearing the end of their life, when in reality the dog is just starving because their mouth is in absolute agony.
And resolving the dental disease instantly brings the dog's appetite and energy back.
It really highlights why we cannot rely solely on behavioral observation. The internal systems require clinical validation. But beyond the vet clinic, we also have to restructure the physical environment they live in.
We do, because our modern homes, with slippery hardwood floors and high beds, were definitely not engineered for a canine skeletal system with degrading muscle stabilizer.
Exactly the opposite, in fact. As a Husky loses muscle mass, they lose the microstabilizers in their legs that allow them to balance on slick surfaces.
Right. Watching an older dog try to stand up on a hardwood floor is like watching a human try to stand up on an ice rink.
Oh, that's a brutal image.
They have to tense every remaining muscle in their body just to avoid splaying out. It is exhausting, and it actually causes micro tears in the muscles they have left.
So the source material suggests putting down non-slip surfaces like yoga mats or area rugs in their primary traffic zones. You're essentially providing artificial grip to replace their lost muscle stabilizers.
And you must provide easy, ramped access to their preferred resting spots to eliminate the sheer impact force of jumping down. Furthermore, maintaining a highly predictable daily routine reduces the cognitive load on a brain that is already working harder to process sensory information.
The source also highlights the VitalPet app, which is a structural tool for the owner. Because, when you're suddenly managing semi-annual blood panels, tracking subtle behavioral shifts, scheduling dental cleanings, and maybe giving them joint supplements, human memory is going to fail.
It really is. Centralizing that data prevents the subtle, long-term trends from just slipping through the cracks.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of these physical and environmental adaptations, the non-slip rugs, the modified walk schedules, the proactive blood work, they serve a much higher holistic purpose.
Which is their emotional well-being.
Yes. A dog's quality of life is not just measured by the absence of pain.
Yeah.
It is measured by their sense of security, their ongoing companionship with you, and their ability to still engage with the world confidently.
Yeah.
Healthy aging is about adapting alongside their physical changes so they never feel lost or unsupported in their own home.
So, to synthesize all this for you, aging in a high-performance endurance breed like the Siberian Husky is an invisible cellular process that begins long before they look old.
Right.
It demands an owner who understands the biomechanics beneath the fur. You have to remember, the motion paradox preserves the suspension bridge by keeping them active through shorter, lower-impact routines, rather than letting the tension cables atrophy on the couch.
Exactly.
When their bodies need to rest, you must exhaust their minds with cognitive puzzles to redirect that working dog drive. You have to understand that when they seem disobedient or skittish, they're likely just struggling with nuclear sclerosis and hearing loss.
It's about empathy and adaptation. You modify your home to provide artificial stability, and you rely on routine blood work to bypass their natural stoicism.
It really is a dynamic, evolving partnership between you, your dog, and your veterinary team.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final concept to mull over. We spent a lot of time today talking about the stoicism of the Husky and how incredibly frustrating it is that they mask their pain from us until it's almost too late.
It is frustrating.
But if you think about their history, could this frustrating stoicism actually be one of the most deeply ingrained evolutionary survival traits on the planet? Think about the environment where their sled-pulling ancestors evolved.
The tundra.
Right. In the brutal, freezing, unforgiving landscape of the tundra, showing weakness inside a pack was not just a disadvantage, it was a death sentence. A dog that actively displayed an injury or showed that they were slowing down became a liability to the survival of the team.
And in a harsh winter landscape, becoming a liability meant being left behind.
Exactly. If that desperate instinct to hide pain and project strength is literally coded into their DNA for survival, doesn't that fundamentally change our modern role in their lives?
It makes us so much more than just a companion or a provider of food.
Right. It requires us to step fully into the role of a highly observant pack leader. We have to be the one entity in their entire world that they trust implicitly, the only one they might accidentally let their guard down around.
We are tasked with seeing the invisible cellular signs of aging that they are trying so desperately, with every fiber of their evolutionary being, to hide from the rest of the world.
So the next time your senior husky bolts out the front door like a puppy with somewhere incredibly important to be, let them run, but watch their stride closely, because they are relying entirely on you to know exactly when it is time to slow down.